How are you?
Good, good. Vaki yesterday, got poked in the eye, broken nose.
Detroit, if you thought training camp couldn't get any more emotional, Dan Campbell just proved you wrong. In a press conference that started with the usual coach speak about competition and physicality, Campbell suddenly pulled out a random movie reference, got choked up talking about one of his own players, and gave us one of the most human, unscripted moments we've seen from a head coach in a long, long time. If you're a Lions fan, you need to hear this one word for word. This is Detroit Scope, the channel that digs past the highlight reels and gets you the real story behind everything happening in Allen Park. We are closing in on 1,000 subscribers, and we genuinely cannot get there without you. So if this is your first time here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now, because trust us, you're going to want to be here for what comes next. Let's start with the big picture, because Campbell opened his press conference by setting the tone for exactly where this team is right now. He talked about how it feels like the Lions are right back in the saddle for the regular season, even though there's still plenty of work left to do before they get there. Coming off of what this team went through last year, Campbell said the mentality right now is about accepting it, acknowledging it, and using it as fuel. And by his own description, things out on that practice field have felt gritty. There is real competition happening everywhere you look, between position groups, within position groups, on both sides of the ball. From a pure personnel standpoint, Campbell believes this roster has taken some genuinely huge steps toward getting where it needs to be. And now that the pads are finally on, the intensity has ramped up in a way that has the entire building buzzing. Campbell made a point of saying that the second week of camp is always when the real separation starts to show, and he's not just talking about physical separation either. He's talking about the mental side too, watching which players start to fade a little under the grind while others rise to meet it. That's the moment when you really find out who has what it takes to separate themselves schematically, physically, and mentally. And according to Campbell, that separation is already starting to unfold in real time. But then the conversation shifted, and this is where things got genuinely special. A reporter brought up Jahmyr Gibbs and his new contract extension, and asked Campbell to reflect on Gibbs' growth as a player and what it means to see him rewarded on a personal level. And what came next was not your typical coach speak answer at all. Campbell paused, smiled, and told the room he was about to reference a movie that some people in the room were going to get, and some people weren't. He brought up the original Friday movie, and the character of Uncle Elroy, a man who won the lottery while his brother Willie worked hard, did everything the right way, and never got that same lucky break. Willie was left frustrated, watching Elroy cash in and move to the suburbs while he stayed behind grinding it out. And Campbell explained that in families, in locker rooms, in any close-knit group, there's always that dynamic where if somebody gets something without truly earning it, there's resentment, there's that little voice saying, he's lucky, he didn't deserve that. But Campbell was crystal clear about one thing. This situation with Gibbs is the complete opposite of that story. Gibbs earned every single bit of what he just got. Campbell said the feeling inside the building right now isn't just happiness for the organization or happiness for the city of Detroit, although both of those things are true. It's genuine, personal happiness for Gibbs as a human being. Campbell pointed out that from the very first day Gibbs stepped into Allen Park, he did everything the coaching staff asked of him. He carried himself exactly the way a professional should, especially considering the spotlight and the pressure that came with being drafted as high as he was. Campbell even acknowledged that some people around the league questioned whether Gibbs was drafted too early, too aggressively. And that kind of outside noise can genuinely mess with a young player's head if they let it. But according to Campbell, Gibbs did the exact opposite of what Uncle Elroy represented. He said if he had a little brother in real life, he would be proud to have Gibbs be that guy. And in a lot of ways, he already feels like he is. Campbell talked about watching Gibbs grow from a pass protection standpoint, in his route running, as an already elite ball carrier, but especially in the mental side of the game and how he's handled his business like a true professional. Campbell said he hopes young players and young fans watching are paying close attention to exactly how Gibbs approached this entire process, going from year 1 to year 2 to year 3, continuing to get better every single stretch, while still carrying that same chip on his shoulder that followed him from Georgia Tech to Alabama and all the way to Detroit, from a young player who, in his own mind, was never quite good enough. And now, Campbell said, it's on Gibbs to remind himself, and on the coaching staff to reinforce it, that nothing has actually changed. His financial situation is different now, sure, but the work it's going to take to get this team where it needs to go has not changed one bit. Campbell said it just feels good, genuinely good, that the right guy won, that the right guy did things the correct way, and is now getting rewarded for everything he's put together. Naturally, The conversation turned to workload, because with Gibbs locked in long-term, there's an obvious question about whether he becomes the true bell cow back for this offense, and whether that comes with any physical risk. Campbell didn't dodge the question, but he also didn't sound overly worried. He said the coaching staff is always concerned about the physical toll on every single player on this roster, not just Gibbs. He even joked that he's got concerns about safeties getting run over by certain hard-hitting teammates just as much as he worries about touches piling up on his running back. But Campbell was clear that managing usage is simply part of the job, and this staff plans to do exactly that with Gibbs. And then he made a point that's worth remembering, because it reframes the entire conversation around what a bell cow back even means in 2026. Campbell said if you go back to the early 2000s, being a bell cow meant getting 40 carries a game. But with a player like Gibbs, you could be a bell cow while touching the ball 10 times and still finishing with 200 total yards. There are different ways to define that role now. What this coaching staff needs from Gibbs is impact, with the ball in his hands and without it. Campbell said Gibbs has earned the right to be the first name called out of the tunnel, earned the right to carry the load in certain situations, and earned the right to be the guy trusted to make plays on third down. And the beauty of it, according to Campbell, is that Gibbs doesn't need the ball in his hands to be that bell cow. He can line up at receiver. He can play out of the wing. He can operate out of the backfield. There's a genuine versatility to what he brings that most traditional bell cow backs never had. From there, the conversation shifted to new offensive coordinator Drew Petzing, and Campbell had nothing but praise for how he's handled his first real training camp calling the shots for this offense. Campbell said the overall philosophy has been collective, that no single person in that building is as smart as the entire group working together, and Petzing has done a genuinely excellent job coming in and recognizing just how much talent already exists on both the player side and the coaching side. Campbell said Petzing clearly understands his own strengths too, and it's shown in how evenly he spread the football around to start this camp. There have been real, noticeable growth spurts from certain players the staff needed to see take that next step, and there have also been surprises, guys nobody knew much about who are suddenly flourishing, both in this new environment and specifically within this offensive scheme. Campbell credited a lot of that to how the position rooms have been structured and how the staff has put everything together as a whole. But he singled out Petzing's work during installation meetings, praising his ability to make every single player in the room feel like they're a genuine part of the process, whether that room has 3 people in it or 15. Campbell called him a great communicator, someone who can take an idea and articulate it in a way that actually reaches everybody, not just the top 1 or 2 guys in the room. And Campbell said Petzing has done an excellent job pulling in the expertise of different position coaches and shining a light on all of it collectively. Then the questions turned to the connection between Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown, a duo that's been remarkably consistent for 5 seasons running now. And Campbell's answer here was fascinating, because he broke it down to something as simple as routine. He explained that if you watch Amon-Ra at the start of practice, there's an exact catching routine he goes through every single time. If you watch Goff, there's a specific throwing routine that never changes. Campbell said their on-field timing is precise because of that repetition, but it's their relationship off the field that gives this duo something most quarterback-receiver pairings simply don't have. Campbell said there's a level of nonverbal communication between the two of them now that genuinely catches him off guard sometimes. He'll be watching a rep and think to himself, wait, who called that? Who's doing that? And it'll be happening in the middle of a live play, with both players completely on the same page about adjusting the ball to the outside shoulder or sliding protection away from an interior rusher, without a single word ever being exchanged about it beforehand. Campbell said that kind of chemistry comes from pure experience and routine, and from both players committing to doing everything the exact same way every single time, so that everything looks identical right up until the moment it isn't. And when asked just how remarkable that unspoken communication really is, Campbell explained that it becomes especially critical when a receiver is working out of the slot. Playing outside gives a receiver a little more time and a little more room to read and react. But operating out of the slot means the spaces are tight, the timing has to be exact, and there is zero room for a false step. Goff can't afford to hitch twice in the pocket waiting our route. If the ball needs to come out on one hitch, it has to come out on one hitch. And in those tight, split-second situations, Campbell said Goff and St. Brown consistently get it right, which is exactly why some of the throws they're completing right now look almost impossible from the outside looking in. The conversation then turned to Jameson Williams and the noticeable jump he's made in contested catch situations, and this is where Campbell gave one of the most detailed, technical answers of the entire press conference. He explained that after last season ended, the coaching staff's mind was made up about what needed to change, and every player on this roster gets an individualized action plan for the offseason. Campbell said he sat down directly with Jameson to talk through it, and introduced a concept he calls checkpoints, labeled B and C, referring to different points in a route where the football arrives relative to a receiver's body. Checkpoint A is way out in front of the body. Checkpoint B is where you start dealing with true 50-50 jump ball situations. And checkpoint C is when the ball has already worked its way all the way into the receiver's frame, at which point there's no more room for adjustment or a second chance to make the catch. Campbell said the entire focus of this offseason was extending Jameson's catch radius back toward checkpoint, teaching him to attack and snatch the football out away from his body more aggressively. And the ripple effect of that work, according to Campbell, is that once a receiver is comfortable and confident catching the ball early at checkpoint A, it actually makes those difficult contested checkpoint C catches easier too, because the eyes and the hands are working together more efficiently even when the catch does happen late. Campbell also touched on the mental side of it, explaining that the staff wanted Jameson to understand that pure separation is only part of the equation. In tight coverage areas, you can't always outrun every defender to create separation, but you can control your checkpoints, your catch technique, and your body positioning. Campbell said the staff has worked to build both of those tools together, so that Walker's game has a genuine changeup to complement his fastball, so to speak, giving him multiple ways to separate, depending on the coverage he's facing. Campbell praised Walker's catch radius as legitimately special already, saying he consistently makes plays once the ball is in the air. But as Walker continues developing into a true number 3 receiver in this offense, Campbell explained he's going to see a lot of situations where the defense doubles up on amon-ra St. Brown, doubles Jameson Williams, or doubles Gibbs out of the backfield, which means Walker is regularly going to be isolated on a team's third cornerback. In those one-on-one reps, Walker has to be able to win with either size or quickness, and Campbell said those exact situations are going to keep coming for him all camp long. The coaching staff, in Campbell's words, is genuinely excited to see where that continues to go. The press conference then took a more personal turn when receivers coach Scotty Miller was asked about his relationship with the wide receiver room, now that he's had a full off-season and season under his belt leading that group. Miller reflected that when he first stepped into that room, his relationship with the players was strong but strictly football-based. Now, he said, it's become genuinely personal. He knows the players' children. He knows their partners and fiancés. He knows the extended circle of people connected to each guy in that room. And he said that closeness makes a real difference. Miller mentioned getting the chance to go play golf with some of the receivers away from the building and talked about seeing each guy's competitive nature up close in ways he never could have from a purely professional distance. He specifically called out amon-ra St. Brown's fierce hatred of losing at literally anything. Miller said all of these small, human moments have changed the way he and his players look at each other in the meeting room now, because they know he genuinely has their best professional interests at heart, something they already knew from last season. But now, they also know he has their best personal interests at heart too. Miller admitted he does miss coaching the running backs, a group he worked with previously and still has close relationships with, but said the personal bond he's built with this receiver room has become something truly special to him this offseason. Finally, the press conference circled back one more time to Jahmyr Gibbs, with a question about his development since entering the league back in 2023 and the coaching staff's role in that growth. And Campbell, in a moment of real coaching humility, actually pushed back a little on the framing of the question. He said he wasn't entirely sure how much credit the coaching staff truly deserved for Gibbs' development, crediting it instead to Gibbs' natural gifts and his family background, joking that if you hand him a player with that kind of talent, of course he's going to get better under proper coaching. But then Campbell got into the real substance of Gibbs' growth, explaining that in college football, pass protection responsibilities are often minimal because of wider spacing and simpler blitz packages. In the NFL, though, linebackers can genuinely cover, safeties can genuinely cover speed, and pass protection becomes an absolutely critical piece of a running back's overall game. Campbell revealed that during Gibbs' very first training camp practice with the team, the offense was already running somewhere between 12 and 14 distinct pass protection schemes, each with its own layered rules covering front-side responsibilities, backside responsibilities, safety reads, and everything in between. Campbell said that level of protection mastery usually doesn't fully click for a running back until year 2 or year 3 in the league. Gibbs, according to Campbell, was already pretty solid at it in year 1. Now, heading into year 3 and 4, That installation process looks completely different for him. Instead of just nodding along and accepting the assignment, Gibbs is actively correcting himself in real time and, more importantly, starting to coach up his own teammates on the field. Campbell said the entire staff still sometimes looks at Gibbs and forgets just how young he actually is, correcting himself mid-thought as he worked out that Gibbs is only 23 or 24 years old, and yet he's already coaching up players in that running back room who are older than him and haven't played nearly as much football at this level. Campbell said that leadership growth is exactly what has the coaching staff so genuinely excited right now, comparing it to the leap they watched amon-ra St. Brown make a few years back, and a leap they've already seen from Jack Campbell on the defensive side of the ball. And now, in Campbell's words, it's time to see that same next step of leadership from Gibbs, a step the entire coaching staff genuinely believes he is ready to take. So there you have it, Detroit. An entire press conference that started as standard training camp updates and turned into one of the most raw, honest windows we've gotten into how Dan Campbell actually feels about his players as people, not just as football pieces on a roster. Gibbs earning that extension the right way. Petzing quietly building trust across an entire offensive room. Goff and St. Brown operating on a level of chemistry that borders on telepathic. Jameson Williams putting in real technical work to become a genuine threat in contested situations. Tez Walker building a complete toolbox to become that true number 3 option. And Gibbs at just 23 or 24 years old, already stepping into a leadership role that usually takes players years longer to grow into. If this team is going to take that next step this season, it sounds like the pieces, and more importantly, the people, are exactly where they need to be. Lions fans, let us know down in the comments which part of this press conference hit you the hardest. Was it the Uncle Elroy story? The details on Jameson Williams' contested catch work? Or Campbell casually admitting Gibbs is already coaching up his own teammates? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and make sure you're subscribed to Detroit Scope so you never miss a single update as we push toward 1,000 subscribers together. We'll see you in the next one.